Welcome, everyone. I'm Penny Lewis, Executive Director of the Ecological Landscape Alliance, and I'll be the webinar moderator for Beatrice Stonebanks' webinar on growing your business. This is one of the presentations we're offering in the Focus on Sustainability webinar series. This series was developed by a group of organizations known regionally for their quality ecological education. And by collaborating together on this series, the webinars expand the reach of each of our individual programs. In case you're not familiar with our organizations, they're all nonprofit and largely volunteer groups in the United States. The regional groups are the Ecological Landscape Alliance, the Chesapeake Conservation Landscaping Council, the Midwest Ecological Landscape Alliance, and Eco-Landscape California. And now I would like to introduce our presenter, Beatrice Stonebanks. Beatrice is a sales management consultant. She has degrees in both horticulture and business and has had successful careers as a landscape designer and stockbroker. Today, Beatrice is going to focus on business development and growing your business with special considerations for landscape professionals. Beatrice is a board member and the communications chair for her local USGBC chapter and is committed to a low carbon footprint for both herself and professionally. Welcome, Beatrice.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and hello, everyone. I'm delighted to share a little bit with you today. The topic speaks for itself: how to use sex and power to increase sales. And I'm going to clarify right away that I don't mean sex as in sexuality and being a sex kitten or a Romeo while on the job. I mean sex as in gender. There are differences, the basic differences between men and women in their brains and in their buying styles. If you know the differences, you can use them to your advantage. Men buy, women shop. Facts versus relationship. She wants interaction and eye contact. He wants concise, factual answers to his questions. For a man, no means you haven't given him enough information. Stick with the facts. Ask what's missing for him and give it to him. For a woman, no really means no, so have a plan B ready and practice your patience skills. Follow-up becomes everything. Figure out what's missing for her and trust her. And we'll talk about this at both the sex side and the power side. For all my feminists and gays out there, this also isn't about losing any of the ground we've gained. We all deserve to be paid equally and have the same human rights, but when it comes to sex, we aren't the same. We are not equal. Acknowledging it is far more powerful, and using it to your advantage is the objective. Women have different needs and desires than men. You want to know what the number one issue is for men and women when buying? Women, lack of sales help when needed. Men, close parking. That's a huge difference. And since women now make up or influence 86% of purchases, the fact is women are now your primary targets. So we're going to talk a little bit about the differences in the brain as a place to start, the facts. But remember, men buy, women shop. Facts versus relationship. I'm going to share with you my contact information at the end, so no worries about writing this down now if you don't have a pen handy. But my email address and my phone number are available to all of you for any questions. Don't ever hesitate. The things I'm going to cover: sex, as in gender, the differences. We're going to start with the facts. What are the differences in the brain of a man and a woman? Then we're going to talk about power and the number one way to get more business. How to use sex and power to your advantage and why. Two styles of selling that you can predominantly use easily, and some opening and closing statements that I like and find powerful. There are a couple of additions in between these topics, and I'll transition to them naturally, but this is the broad stroke of the things I will cover so you know what's ahead of you. So let's jump in further to the facts. The brain size of a man, the male brain, is typically about 10% larger than the female brain. Although the extra mass does give men more processing power, it doesn't mean that they're more intelligent than women. Rather, science believes the reason for the increased brain mass is to accommodate the bigger body mass and muscle groups of the man. And the brain hemispheres for men are sharply left brain dominant, while women tend to be more evenly balanced between left and right brain processing. Women are therefore slightly more intuitive and sometimes better communicators. Men are often less socially adept and are more task-oriented thinkers than females. So see if that lives for you. We're going to talk about a continuum as well, but these are the basic differences in predominantly male and predominantly female brains. The third one is relationships. Women are purported to have better communication skills and emotional intelligence than men. Women tend to be group-oriented. They seek solutions by talking through issues. Men can have trouble picking up on emotional cues unless they're clearly verbalized, making communication tricky sometimes between the sexes. And mathematical skills. The inferior parietal lobule, which controls the numerical brain function, is larger in males than in females. On standardized tests, men score higher on mathematical tests than women. It's just a fact. The fifth, stress. When faced with stressful situations, men usually employ fight or flight tactics, while women use a tend or befriend response. This is rooted in their natural instincts for caring for their children and establishing strong group bonds, something to keep in mind. Same with language. Women often excel at language-based tasks for two reasons. The two brain areas that deal with language are larger in females, and females process language in both hemispheres, while males favor a single brain half. Emotions are different as well. Since women tend to have a larger deep limbic system than men, they're more in touch with their feelings and are better at expressing their emotions. This makes women better at connecting with others, but unfortunately also more prone to different types of depression. Spatial abilities. The parietal region is thicker in the female brain, making it harder for them to mentally rotate objects, an important spatial skill. Women often report difficulty with spatial tasks, both on tests and in real life. So men, keep that in mind. Women, don't give yourself a hard time about that. Susceptibility to brain function disorders. This is the distinction that has men be more likely to be dyslexic or have other language disabilities, since they're more often left brain dominant. Males are also more prone to autism, ADHD, Tourette's. Women are more susceptible to mood disorders like anxiety and depression. Again, basic differences factually in the predominantly male brain and the predominantly female brain. But what we're dealing with is not an either or. It's not really just a man or a woman, is it? Especially now. There is a continuum. Different people identify in different ways. I'm ragingly feminine on the outside, yet my brain has a very male component to it. Give me the facts and I'm happy. So I'm somewhere along that continuum as well. Now, how do you know what you're dealing with? Well, you don't have to figure it out. I'm going to make it easy for you. It's respect-based. That's how we're going to use sex and power all the way through this conversation. Differences in the brain styles, yes. Differences factually, yes. But respect is the common denominator, and that's what's going to serve you no matter where someone is on that continuum. Now, respect, for the sake of this conversation, it actually matches the dictionary nicely, which is a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. So I've highlighted, as you can see, abilities, qualities, or achievements, and we're going to talk about next, why and how to use sex to sell. So I want you to remember these three, abilities, qualities, or achievements, because we're going to jump into why and how to use sex to sell. So why? Because when your sex hormones are turned on, your defense pathways are turned off. I'm going to say that again. When your sex hormones are turned on, your defense pathways are turned off. Now again, this doesn't mean we're going to be sexual with someone. This isn't about that kind of sex hormone. This is about tapping the part of them that makes them feel good about themselves. That respect-based component. Which way did I go there? Let me go back. Good. I went the right way. So the why is when your sex hormones are turned on, your defense pathways are turned off. But how do you use that? You compliment them genuinely and evidence what's missing for them. So let me put this in perspective for you so you know what I'm talking about here. Back in the 80s, when I was in my 20s, I attended a set of leadership trainings, adult effectiveness trainings. It was called LifeSpring. And it was all woo-woo back then, similar to EST and the forum now, but it was LifeSpring. And I was in my 20s, and it was great fun, and I learned a lot about being a leader, but it was in the context of an adult effectiveness training. And one of the things that this training did was they had you be their marketing source. You enrolled your friends and your family into the training. They didn't market directly to the public. You were their marketing campaign. So how could you enroll someone into an adult effectiveness training? Well, you had to think about what was there for them to learn and evidence it in yourself such that they would say, hey, I want that too. And then you could enroll them in the training. So they taught you how to do this. Now, enrolling people in the training was a big rub at the time. People didn't want to be bothered with that. But if you learned how to do that, and I did because I was in sales, you really had an advantage. I can now sell to anyone, anything. It doesn't matter where it came from, but I'm 55 now, and since I was in my 20s, I've used this technique with huge, huge benefit. So compliment them genuinely. Here's an example of how to use this, how to figure out what's missing in them, evidence it in yourself so that they sell themselves. So here's an example. I had a client who was stuck in the contract signature phase. No matter what I did, he wouldn't sign the contract. I had met all of his objections. I had created a proposal. I had done a presentation. I had talked with all the decision makers on the team. I just didn't have a contract signature, and I couldn't figure out why. And he was far enough away that we had done, given the style of business that he had, all of this over the phone and in online webinar sessions like we're doing now. So I hadn't actually met with him. So I decided one day that I was going to show up in his parking lot and then call him and say, I'm outside. I was in the area. Thought I'd come in and see if that could, in person, could make a difference. So I go in, I meet with him, and the man is gigantic. He is huge, and he has food stains all over his shirt and food in his beard. So he didn't want me to see him, is what I very quickly realized. So this was a big deal. So I complimented him genuinely based on what was missing. I figured it out. He lacked confidence. But this man was so incredibly smart. He was so incredibly talented. He was a website developer, and he could play at such a technical level that it really helped create the scope of work and a business proposal that was in depth, far beyond anything I could have done on my own. So after we did our hellos, thank you so much for meeting with me. I appreciate you taking the time. I evidenced what was missing for him, that he had that lack of confidence. So I complimented him genuinely on his intellect, on what he was able to bring to the picture so that we could do really good business and have the scope of work be accurate and detailed and just a huge win. This compliment turned on his sex hormones, that piece that makes him feel good about himself. So his embarrassment for being in front of me was immediately gone. His shoulders went back, his posture raised a little bit. He smiled at me and he was like, "You're welcome." I complimented him. Not only that, a girl was complimenting him on his intelligence, on his strength, and I did it genuinely. And I walked out of there with a signed contract. Now, I'm not saying that if you compliment someone, you're going to have them close the business. You have to have the product and service that they're asking for. You have to do good business and go through the steps to a close. I'm talking about the why and the how part of how to use sex to sell. The power part we'll get into in a minute. But why? Because if you compliment them genuinely, you put them at ease. You make them feel good about themselves, and then their defense pathways are turned off more. When you evidence what's missing for them in that moment and compliment them genuinely, then you've got a real playing field to create a win-win. One of the other examples I like to use was an architect, and she was a powerful professional, extraordinarily accomplished architect. Huge, huge educational centers, just amazing work, $100 million, $500 million projects. And I met her early on in the sales cycle, and I walked in and she reached out her hand to shake mine, and she had this limp, little tiny hand. And I thought, oh my, this powerful woman has this tiny, teeny, limp handshake. I was stunned. She was tiny. Her hand was slight. It didn't matter. I happened to be a big, tall girl. It didn't matter what her size was. But to her, she had this limp handshake. So I evidenced her power by complimenting her genuinely on the size of her projects, the reputation she has, the image she holds in the market. That gave her the added power we needed to have her defense pathways turned off with me, someone who was obviously larger than she was. So I evidenced what was missing, power component for her, and I complimented her genuinely on it. And again, we moved forward from a peer-based, powerful place in this negotiation process. Aside from the limp handshake, her power got to be elevated so that she could participate with me in a win-win. Sometimes people are powerful and they're going to come to that plate with something else missing. So this how and why to use sex to sell is a technique you get to pay attention to, and that's why, a portion of why, I give you my phone number and my email address. A lot of people have specific questions. They'll give me an example, and I'll help them see what's missing in that interaction so that you can evidence it, compliment them genuinely on what's missing, and get both players moving towards the sale. Because I'm in sales, this is all about the sale. So there's the how and why. Let's use it. Remember I talked about that respect component, the abilities, the qualities, or the achievements? This is what you pay attention to. What are their abilities? What are the qualities that stand out for them, or their achievements? That's how you have respect as the foundation under which you're going to use your power or your gender, male or female, to your advantage. The number one way to get more business, doesn't matter if you're going to use this technique or not, although I use this technique all the time. The number one way to get more business, anybody have an idea? Are you right? Ask for it. The number one way to get more business is to ask for it. Seems simpler than some people really think the answer should be. But it's important. That's all you have to do is ask for it. So many salespeople, especially professionals that have a different area of expertise, landscape architects, landscape designers, landscape implementers, they have an area of expertise, as do other professions. Sales may not be their area of expertise. And often, since I partner a lot in the building and construction and landscape sectors, I notice that they don't need full-time salespeople, so they end up doing, someone on the team ends up doing most of the sales. So how are you going to, so you need to take advantage of the number one way to get more business is to ask for it. That's easier than trying to be a salesperson that you may not naturally be. So who are you going to ask? I have a way of creating a kind of ideal client for you. I figure out what an ideal client is, and those are the ones that I ask for more business. Some people come to me, they're warm leads, I qualify them, different story. I'm talking about you going out and soliciting for new business. Who are you going to ask? One of the ways to figure out what an ideal client is for yourself is to call 10 or 12 of your best clients. And by best clients, I mean your top clients over the last few years. Top clients by any metric. They made you a lot of money, you got to be really creative, you liked you sold a lot of products and services, you liked the design aspect, they referred you to other people, they paid their bills on time, all of the above, some of the above. Whatever qualifier you want, make a list of 10 or 12 of your best clients. Now, I do this for my clients. My suggestion is that you have one of your assistants or someone else with a good phone voice do this for you. You can do it yourself, but it's always nice and you get better responses if you have someone else do it for you. So you make a list of your best clients, 10 or 12 of them, and then you call them up. And if it's someone else doing it for you, I would say, This is Beatrice. I'm calling on behalf of Penny. She speaks very highly of working with you. I'd like to ask you a couple of quick questions about your experience working with her. It's a no-brainer. It's a piece of cake. Everyone says yes. I'm not threatening at all. I've got nothing to sell. I'm just asking them some questions. The demographic questions that I ask take about a minute. For companies that specialize in doing B2B, business-to-business work, the demographic questions would be number of employees, headquarters location, number of branches, the corporate style, is it an LLC, a nonprofit, incorporated, subchapter S, and the geographic locations you serve. Those would be the demographic questions on the corporate side or the business side. If you specialize in working with individuals, residential homes, and private people, the demographic questions are age, marital status, number of children, education level, and geographic area that you're in. This set of demographic questions I track in an Excel spreadsheet. I do this with 10 or 12 of the best clients, and then I look for the patterns. Often the patterns are more surprising than some people think. I have one interior designer I love to use as an example. He had 6 sales reps, and he knew his primary ideal client was older women, but we did the ideal client summary anyway, and we found out that they weren't just older women. They were older women with multiple higher education degrees. That's a big deal, and they were single. So you now have this ammunition on where to advertise, who to market to, and how to attract your ideal client based on some really detailed information. So we ask those demographic questions, and again, I track them in the same Excel spreadsheet so I can look for the patterns. The next 2 questions I ask are by far the most important. I ask what they like most about working with you. And I track the words and phrases, the actual words and phrases they say in this document. And then I highlight, when I'm done, the repeated words and phrases. The words and phrases that they use become the words and phrases I use to attract more ideal clients for them, or they would use on their website, in their marketing material, in their newsletter. They would use those exact words and phrases to attract more of the kind of ideal client they want. That becomes a very powerful place to sell from. You can talk about how you think you stand out from the competition, but what your clients say about you is far more important. So if you survey 10 or 12 of your best clients, you track the exact words and phrases they say, and you look for the pattern, then you've got a powerful place to keep selling from to more ideal clients. And that's part of the reason why I say, let someone else make the calls for you, because they're going to give you a response. They're going to give someone else a response that may be a little bit different than what they gave you directly. And that really comes into play for this last one. I ask them, and I say, assuming there's always room for improvement, what do you like least about working with Penny, with XYZ company, whoever it is? And then I'm quiet. I don't say anything, and I wait for the response, and I always get one. And they tell me what they like least. Now, this is their best clients, and they are coming up with something they like least. This is why you want someone else to do the asking. This becomes your room for improvement, of course, but even more powerful, it becomes how you overcome objections for the next prospect before they even have them. So they're a landscape maintenance contractor in a big office park, and you go and you do extraordinary work, but you leave behind some debris by the water drainage canals all the time. So this is a problem. They don't like that you do that. You do everything else awesome, but you leave behind debris. So when you're pitching the next company in an office park, you can say, and we guarantee that we clean up after ourselves even by the water drainage areas. They don't even have to have the objection. Or in the construction industry, I love this contractor. The project took 3 months, but the punch list took 6 months. Well, that's something not to like. So when you're working with new clients, new prospects, you say, before they even have the objection, we guarantee our punch list is done in 30 days. This becomes a powerful place to sell from, using the words and phrases that you know your clients say about you, and overcoming objections before the new prospects even have them. So call your best clients or have someone call them Keep it very simple. These calls take 90 seconds to 2 minutes, and look for the patterns. That's how you create an ideal client summary. I do this so that I'm pitching and so that my clients are pitching ideal clients. So you're not wasting your time on all these other projects. You're doing the kind of work you really want to do at the profit margin you desire. Making the money you want and doing the kind of work that you want is extraordinarily more rewarding. Know what an ideal client is for you. And then implement the number one way to get more business, ask for it. So a lot of people have trouble asking. What keeps you silent? What makes you not a good asker? You don't know what you want? Well, you can figure out what an ideal client is by those demographic questions. You have a limited perspective on what's possible. You're afraid of how others will react. You believe you shouldn't have to ask. I've got 4 buildings in this one area. Why don't I have the other one? They should just give it to me. I shouldn't have to ask. Or I do 10 homes on that block. I did this project and have 17 great referrals with pool landscaping or professional children's playground areas behind schools and that style of project. Maybe you think you should just be given that kind of work, given your reputation. Or you're an indirect communicator. This one's easy to picture. I often say to my husband, it's cold in here. I don't say, can you please turn up the heat? Or I need a sweater. I say, it's cold in here. I'm an indirect communicator. So these are some of the things that may keep you silent. When I say the number one way to get more business is to ask for it, and you aren't asking, figure out what's in your way. Do you know what you want, the kind of ideal client you want? Do you have a limited perspective on what's possible? You'll take any business that comes along to you? No. How about at the profit margin you desire, doing the kind of work you really want to do? You're afraid of how others will ask. They'll think I'm too pushy. I'm trying to be a salesperson. You are in sales. Here's the thing. I believe there is nothing to sell. If you have the products and services the client wants, be their expert. That's all you have to do. They will sell themselves. So that when you ask for the business, and we're going to cover in just a minute some of the ways that I ask for the business, they'll sell themselves. Or they'll tell you why they're not going to, and then you'll know how to handle that. If someone doesn't have enough information, if they need to check with a partner or a business associate, if it's outside their budget, they're going to tell you. But you need to be able to ask. And if you're an indirect communicator or you don't know how to ask, that makes it harder. So let's talk about how to become a better asker so that you can increase your business by asking for it. The first way to become a better asker, and I've already explained, I'm 55, I started in sales in my 20s. I still do this one 30 years later. I write down what I want so that I can say it out loud, and I have nuanced the exact way I want to say it. Some of my sales are very, very detailed. I can write down exactly what I want to ask. It makes me a better asker. But then I don't have to stammer. I don't have to be embarrassed to say anything. I don't have to worry about how I'm going to say it or if I'm thorough. I write it down. Huge, powerful place to do your asking from. Write down what you want. And then create a good atmosphere. This one's really important because so many people don't create the right atmosphere. Make sure you and the person you're asking both have the time. And invite the other person to sit down and talk with you. Tell them you have something to ask them. Don't say when they're getting in their car and they're on their way to their next appointment, hey, I want to talk about signing that contract with you. Don't talk to them when they're walking down the hall and you're going the other direction. Hey, I want to talk about the scope of work on that project. Create a good atmosphere. Tell them you have something you want to talk with them about. It's about the project you're discussing, and tell them you want to ask them something. It sets them up for it. Create a good atmosphere. And then simply state what you want. Don't preface your statement with a lot of disclaimers. Well, if the budget is there, and I know you've been thinking about it, and I know we have to talk to Mike, just ask politely for what you want. Sometimes I literally read off of my paper what I wrote down. As I said, it helps me be clear and stay on target. but it also lets them see how much it means to me. When I pick up a piece of paper and I cover every single point that I want to cover with them, they get that this means something to me, and they will match that investment with their own power. So simply state what you want, and be prepared to accept a no. If you can't accept a no, then you're making a demand, not a request. So have a backup plan. Be prepared to accept a no, or have a plan B ready. And this really feeds into the plan B. Listen politely to the other person's answer. Whether the other person says yes or no, or something in between, listen carefully to what they say. Skip the drama in your head. Just listen. You need to know what the answer is, because they're going to tell you the next step that needs to happen. If you write down what you want, you create a good atmosphere, you simply state what you want, you have a plan B in case the answer is a no, and you listen politely to the answer, you have more power. This is the way to be a better asker, but this is how to use power in a sale. And remember, it's not what you say, it's what people hear. You may have all heard about this study from multiple people, actually. These numbers are specifically from Bob Entwistle, that 7% of human communication comes from words. 7%! That's it! 38% is from a person's tone of voice. A whopping 55% comes from their body language. And you can't see me, but my hands are all over the place. I'm pointing at my screen. You can hear my tone of voice emphasizing what's important to me. 7% of what I'm talking about comes from my words, and 93% from my tones and my actions. So if you're selling in front of people or over the phone, pay attention to that. It's not what you say, it's what people hear. Let them hear your passion and your commitment to the sale that gives them what they want. Let's talk about the best ways to use your voice. He who speaks next loses. This one I always look to say, and I just covered it. Once I ask a question, I'm quiet. I don't continue to try to sell them. And let them come up with an answer. And sometimes it takes a little while. But and really we're going for a win-win, so he who speaks next loses is really a joke. Just don't say anything is the point. If you ask a question, be quiet. It doesn't mean you're going to lose if you keep talking. It means you shouldn't have to. You should let them answer the question. Vocal variety is key. I've said this multiple times now. Intonation, especially if you're in person, because then it's easier for them to look away and get distracted. And no HRT. So how many people know what HRT is? I say all of you know. HRT is high-rise terminals. High-rise terminals is the global phenomenon happening now where every sentence is finished with an uptone that makes it sound like a question. So it really started in the 80s with Valley Girls in the San Fernando Valley in California. Teenagers, so the reason I'm pointing this out is I don't think that professionals should be using HRT, but it's all around us. Every sentence ends in an uptick. Everything sounds like they're asking a question. Do you hear my voice inflecting at the end, going up? This is a technique that's happening as a global language phenomenon. A global language phenomenon? Everything goes up on the end, high-rise terminals. Very annoying, very unprofessional. Don't use it. Watch yourself. Now that you've heard me say it, you'll notice it all around you. Check in and see if you are doing it. This is critical for a professional to not use HRT, not talk like a teenage girl. Not talk like a teenage girl, have that uptick at the end of the sentence. I hope you're following what I mean. Be authentic. That's the main objective. Be who you are. There's no need to try to be a salesman that you aren't. There's no need to try to have a vocabulary that you don't. There's no need to try to wear a suit when you're in jeans. There's no need to wear jeans when you're in a suit. Whoever it is that you are naturally in that moment, be authentic. That's the best way to use your voice. And your voice, as we just learned, is going to be a huge piece in how effectively you're going to wield your power in a sale. So this piece I'm going to cover quickly. We talked about ideal clients and soliciting them. This is the way that I track my projects in an easy funnel, so I always know who I'm asking. Anybody that I want to work with goes in 10%. Let's say I choose 10 companies I want to do business with. I throw them in the 10% category, portion of the spreadsheet. There's a 10% chance they're going to work with me. That's all that means. There's a 10% chance I'm going to close 10% of them. Once I call them, once I solicit them, once I find out who the decision maker is, send them an email, talk to them on the phone, meet with them in person, once I do anything and they don't tell me no, they move up to 50%. Now it could go either way. 50% chance I'm going to close them. That's where I put my energy. Those are the ones that every single week, every single month, however often they ask me to follow up with them, those are the ones I'm going to stay on top of, because follow-up is everything. And I'll cover on the next slide the statistics behind the statement, follow-up is everything. Once I focus on the 50%, and anybody says, yeah, I'll take a contract from you, I'll look at your pricing, you can give me a proposal, you can bid on the RFP, you can meet with our board, you can meet with my husband, whatever the next step is, yes, we'll consider it. They haven't signed a contract, they haven't given you any money, but there's a yes in there for they'll consider it, that's 90%. Now that it's not that they're 90% along in the sales process, it means you now have a 90% chance of closing them if you give them what they're looking for at the price they desire. Now, if you qualify them on that price, which is a whole nother webinar we can talk about at another time, then you have more of a chance of closing them. But this is a simple way that I keep track of all the leads and the prospects in my funnel. The ones I want to call and that want to solicit are in the 10% category. Anyone I've reached out to that hasn't told me no goes up to the 50% category. And anybody who says, yep, you can give me a price, you can give me a proposal, let's talk about it, they're in the 90% category. Every week, I start my week, I open this up, and you can see on the left-hand side the follow-up date column. I have a date in there of when I'm supposed to follow up with them. Every week I know who I'm supposed to call and what I'm supposed to ask them and where they are in my funnel, so I know how to proceed. This is a powerful way to sell and to keep track of your leads. And I said, follow-up is everything. Only 48% of salespeople never follow up. Only 48% of salespeople never follow up with a prospect, and 25% of salespeople make a second contact and stop. 12% of salespeople make 3 contacts and stop, and only 10% of salespeople make more than 3 contacts. That's ridiculous. 2% of sales are made on the first contact, 3 on the second, and 5 on the third. 10% of sales are made on the 4th contact. But look at this. 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. Who's going to do that follow-up? You are, because you're going to make it as easy as possible for them to work with you. And this is one of the ways you can make it as easy as possible for them to work with you. Getlisted.org. Everybody, as soon as you're done, if you've got a business, you go to getlisted.org. You put in your company name. I've used a landscaping company, a commercial landscaper in the Bay Area, Cleary Brothers. Happen to have worked with him, so he's my client, so I'm okay with this. And his zip code. That's all you do. This is free. You put in your company name and your zip code, and you click Check My Business Listing. And what comes up is how you rank in the top 50 search engines. Where do you do business? Locally, nationally, in your county, in your city, in your state? I don't care. It's going to tell you how you list in the local search, in the top 50 search engines. Google, oops, darn it, there we go. Google, Yelp, Facebook, any of these. Some people don't need to be on Facebook, but at any rate, you don't have to have a 100% score, but you should be up around 80 or 90, and you should see where you rank. This particular company has 53% of their search engine forms filled out. So if you go to Google, is your company showing up on the map? When that little balloon shows up for that location, is your company listed? Are your products and services listed? Is your phone number listed? Is your website listed? All you have to do is click on the incomplete section. It will tell you which ones aren't complete. Fill it in. It'll take you an hour tops. Have an admin do it. Do it when you're sitting at home on the weekend. 14% are inconsistent. That means some people are putting in the word brothers, B-R-O-T-H-E-R-S versus B-R-O-S. Make them consistent. Make each one of them the same. This is free, and this is an easy way. especially if you're going out there and soliciting for new business or people are making referrals for you, the first thing they're going to do when they check you out online is know if you're listed or not. You want to make it as easy as possible for people to do business with you. Get listed. If you only get one new prospect or piece of business a year from each one of these, holy cow, that's a lot of new business for free. So getlisted.org happens to be one of my favorite ways to make sure you're making it as easy as possible for them to work with you. There is no magic. Remember, if you want more business, ask for it. Keep it simple. Here's my favorite opening statements. What would it take to earn your business? I say this all the time. It sounds nerdy. People respect me when I say it. I ask them and I care. What would it take to earn your business? And then I'm quiet and I wait for the answer. What are you looking for in a landscape professional? What can I do to make your job easier? When you get an answer to that one, pay attention. These are powerful, simple opening statements to help you close more business. What would it take to earn your business? They're going to tell you. They might say, you know what, we're going to go with someone else. I just have to get 3 bids. Now you know you don't have to waste your time. They're going to say, I need to have X, Y, and Z included. I need it to stay in budget even if you have to reduce the scope. I need for it to be done in a certain time frame. I need for it to include these amenities. They're going to tell you. This becomes a very powerful way to do business. Whether you're working with a man or a woman, anywhere along that spectrum, these are respect-based opening statements or the beginning of a closing statement. So let's talk about 2 styles of selling. Because when you're opening and closing and you're going through this sales cycle, there are only 2 things you need to worry about. Being approachable. This is anything before the contract signature. You're approachable. Seeking information, figuring out what they need to have done, working on the details, qualifying them, fluid body movements, open body, hand gestures, really approachable is the technique. All the way through the sales process, you're going to be approachable so that they feel comfortable about working with you. And then as soon as it comes time for signing the contract, you're going to get credible. You use this to increase importance, express vehemence, your hands are at your sides, your posture is upright, and you're talking about doing business with them. Trust is a huge deal in your sector. They want to be able to trust they're making a good decision. Be approachable through the process so they feel comfortable talking with you about their needs and budget, and then be credible through the contract signature so that they know they've made a good decision. 2 styles of selling, credible and approachable. Only 2 things you need to worry about. Keeps it simple. Be smart about it. When you're selling someone, I like to be smart all the way through the sales process. I like to be specific about what they need, have it be measurable. How will you know when I've given you that? If it's not a direct deliverable, what will that look like if you've got a design idea? Attainable. Is it really realistic? Sometimes I have to tell people, no, I can't do that. Next client. Don't take just any work. Have it be the work that you desire with ideal clients at the profit margin you desire. And be smart about it. Have the work and the process be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant to what you do, and time specific. I'm going to give you this proposal by next week. I'm going to ask you to give me this information by tomorrow. Is next month too soon? When do you expect to start this project? If you don't start then, what will have gotten in the way? All of these are smart tactics to ask so that you're doing good business. You're paying attention to the fact that men buy, women shop, facts versus relationships. You're keeping it respect-based, and you're being smart along the way. So here are 3 of my favorite closing questions. I'm ready to partner with you. Is there anything in the way of you signing the contract today? Love that one. And then, I'm quiet. Wait and see what they say. I'd like to move forward. What do you see as the next step? I've clearly said I want to move forward. Now I've put the ball in their court. Very powerful closing statement. These 3 are my favorite. These are the ones I use actually all the time. I very rarely change. And then, if not now, when? I'm happy to follow up with you and do what it takes to earn your trust. I say those 3 words. I want to earn your trust. It's a big deal. Yeah, it sounds nerdy. Practice it out loud if you're not already saying it. Get used to saying it. It's one of the ways professionals stand out and earn the value, the price that they want. Value-based selling is about getting the price that you want. You have to show them the value. And paying attention to, is there anything in the way of you signing the contract today? What do you see as the next step? What does it take to earn your trust? Is what it's going to take to close the business. So the key things to remember that I've covered. Women are 86% of the buying power. So if you're selling to women or they are the decision makers, keep that in mind. They want a relationship and they want to trust you. Why and how do you sex to sell? Because when your sex hormones are turned on, your defense pathways are turned off. Compliment them genuinely, figure out what's missing, and have it work so that they're feeling good about themselves when they're with you. That gives you power. Follow-up is everything. 5 to 12 times. Follow-up is everything. Don't wait and say they should be calling me. I didn't hear from them. Follow-up is everything, and I'm respectful every single time I touch them. And I will say sometimes, I don't want to torture you. I know I've left you 6 messages, but really just wanted to follow up one more time and see if this was better timing for you. Respectful, kind. I will do every touch necessary until I get a no. And then it will be, if not now, when? What can I do to earn your business? An ideal client summary is critical. Choose the ideal clients at the profit margin you desire. Those are the ones you solicit. And if you want more business, ask for it. That is the #1 way to increase business. Ask for it. Remember, it's not what you say, it's what they hear. Remember your intonation and your body language. Be approachable all the way through the sales process, and then at the end, get credible and let your clients sell themselves. Serving is the new selling. I believe there's nothing to sell. Be their expert. Be what you're good at already and let them sell themselves. That's how you use sex and power to increase sales. Gives you an edge. Thanks for paying attention all the way through. I hope there's been some value in there. And by all means, any additional questions that we don't get to now, Penny's going to let me know who's asked questions. Here's my email address and my phone number. Don't hesitate to pick up the phone. I'm honored to help in any way I can. And just so that you know, there's no fee for asking me anything you like. Thank you. Penny?
Thank you so much, Beatrice. That was very illuminating. And we do have a few questions from our listeners. The first is, when you talk about defense pathways being turned off, does that mean that the client will not question weaknesses or vulnerable areas in your proposal?
No, it doesn't, because that's doing good business. You have to be able to defend your proposal. There shouldn't be any weak areas. If they notice them, then you strengthen them and you give them the answers and you go back and fix that proposal. When I say that it turns off their defense pathways, I mean that you're paving the way for them to be confident and ready to do good business with you. It doesn't mean they're going to let you get away with doing bad business. It means you've taken away, you've made them more powerful to play at the same level that you're going to play with. Oftentimes we go into meetings where something else is going on for the other person, or we're not evenly matched, a man to a woman to a man, size, intellect, socioeconomic. There are mismatches, and people judge people whether they want to or not. And if you pay attention to getting their defense pathways turned off, then they're open to hearing what you have to say. That's the power behind it, not that you get to give shoddy proposals or scrimp.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, how did you come up with the 10%, 50%, and 90% increments of how you turn project leads, project close?
So this is a good one. I learned this maybe 20 years ago. I have, over the years, done every sales training imaginable. I've done a lot of seminars, a lot of formal training, a lot of education, a lot of conferences, and I know a lot of different strategic selling, solution selling, relationship selling, Miller Hyman, a lot of different sales techniques. And there are lots of different ways to create a funnel, but the one that really stood out for me, that was easy for me to use, that I could share with people and how to track who's in their funnel, was this one. And I have used it and taught how to use it for many, many years, very successfully. I do this with my own prospects. I keep them in one simple spreadsheet. I always know where I am in the sales process, and I know where my focus should be. I don't need to be focusing on the 10%. I need to be focusing on the 90%. Once those are done, I can move to the 50s. So my priorities are spent at the level that is commensurate with the amount of money I want to make. If I'm always down in 10%, I'm not focusing on closing. It's all about the close. So I keep it in this simple spreadsheet that I learned many years ago just because it's the most effective for me. And I find the most effective for most people because it's easy.
All right, very good. Thank you. Do you have recommendations for closing business if you are a woman and you perceive that you're having gender issues in terms of relating to your clients? If you have any tips specifically for how to close business deals if you are a woman running a business?
Yes, and as a woman running a business, I'm gonna try to say this one carefully. It's not that there isn't a glass ceiling. It's not that we don't have issues that are specific to being a woman, especially in front of certain audiences. But my first answer, my main answer before I qualify is just do good business. It doesn't matter if you're a woman. It doesn't matter if you have an ethnicity that is different than the person you're selling to. Nothing matters if you're doing respect-based sales. So if you're a woman and a woman is in front of you, remember she wants to trust you and have a relationship and understand what's going to happen in this process. If you're a woman and you're in front of a man, remember he wants facts. He wants concise, factual answers to his questions. These are very simple things to keep in mind. Who are you selling to? It doesn't matter if you're a woman or not. It matters if they are. Now, if people are judging you, I play in male-dominated fields, and I'm a woman. I'm judged all the time. I don't care. That's the qualifying part here. I don't care. As long as I do good business, I'm proud of what I do, and I'm confident in my sale, they're going to want what I have to sell or not. And if they aren't, because I'm not a man, oh well, there's nothing I can do to change that. So I don't come from that place, and I don't ever suggest that woman-owned companies do. They need to be good at what they're doing. Focus on your areas of expertise. Be the expert. It will sell for you. If you put an emphasis on being a woman, then what's that judgment you're making for yourself? Because woman-owned companies are capturing the market share. Women are the bulk of the decision makers. Women know how to sell. We are a powerful, powerful force out there. That's the confident place you come from. And it doesn't mean men are any less than us, but if we have the product and service they want and we are their expert, they will sell themselves. Does that help?
Very much. Thank you. So thank you, Beatrice, for these great ideas for growing our businesses. And thank you all for attending this webinar. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. Good day and good gardening to you all.